like, oh, it's normal to have hard times. It's normal to have adversity. What's on the weekly ad? That's what I'm eating this week. I would order whatever was the cheapest on the menu.
Well, you can do the same exact situation as someone else and have such a completely different perspective on it and get such a completely different outcome. Hello, and welcome to For the Need Foundation's Root Cause, our podcast where we dive into the root cause of homelessness and other issues. The families we work with at For the Need Foundation are dealing with lots of instability, homelessness, poverty. They're overcrowded and in very difficult situations. But today, I have a very special guest named Rita here, who's come all the way from Seattle to join us and share her story, as she is an overcomer, someone who has been in that similar situation and has overcome the odds and is now thriving with her family. And it is a blessing to know her, and I'm excited to have her on our show here and share what Rita has to say with everybody here. So thank you for watching, and let's get started.
Thank you so much, Allie. The privilege is all mine to be able to share in some of the amazing work that you're doing here with For the Need. It's an incredible organization, and just helping. The thing that I love about it is that you know the people that you're helping. You really have a face to the name of everybody, a face to the dollar of everybody. And I really love that about this organization. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, we're happy to have you.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. We have these kids dealing with adversity, and sometimes all it takes is just being connected to someone who's been there and who can tell them, I love you, I care about you, and there's a better life out there for you. I wanted to mention our topic for today is, can a person, an individual dealing with coming from nothing, can they make it? Can they succeed? And a little bit about what does it take. And so from your perspective, where you've grown up, we would love to hear your story. You know, how did you start out? And let's just tell us all about yourself, you know?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course.
So yeah, basically, I think part of it is expectation for adversity. Like, I think I grew up in a situation where I was like, oh, it's normal to have hard times. It's normal to have adversity. Like, this is just life. And I think that did set me up for a resiliency maybe later. But yeah, so I came to this country. We left Ukraine when I was 4.5. It took us about 9 months to be able to get our entrance visas to come to the United States. So we were waiting in Italy, and we were living in like this shack on top of an apartment complex at the time.
Wow.
Which was the cheapest thing you could find, but nowadays might be called a little bit of homelessness. But I thought it was awesome because you could see the ocean, and I would ride my bicycle on top of the little roof up there, and on the apartment complex on the 10 feet high, 10 floors high. So I had very pleasant childhood memories from that, even though most people would look at it and say we were dirt poor. You know, back then it was the Soviet Union. We had to leave with nothing. We had to leave everything behind. My parents were allowed like one ring, one pair of earrings, one necklace. That's all my mom could bring. So it was a very difficult time. So they really just had like their backpacks or their suitcase, and that's it. Came with nothing, and that took a lot of courage. I really admire them for that, in hopes to give us a better life. At that time, it was just me, and then my brother was actually born in the United States. And so we immigrated, we came, and we were sponsored by an incredible organization that really helped us get our first apartment close to Washington, D.C., and then also helped me to go to a little private school where at the time I learned Hebrew and some other things. So it was a really cool, like, multicultural experience, and that was great. And for me, some of the challenges happened personally was when we moved from Washington, D.C., where we had a little more assistance, to Los Angeles. And
Why? How come you moved?
yeah, so actually, my father had family in Los Angeles. And so just trying to have a little bit more of that familial bond. And we did get that. We actually did get those holidays with the family and things
Mm.
like that, which was special. But our living situation was very tight. It was a one bedroom with the four of us,
Wow.
and at the time there was busing where kids were being bused to different areas. So I was on the bus for a long time every day, going to areas where no one had ever met anybody that speaks with a Russian accent.
Oh, yeah.
So, and in the middle of the Cold War, being young, just experiencing a lot of bullying, a lot of, in addition to that, my parents didn't know how to dress me in order to fit in with where I was being bused to. So there was just a tremendous amount of bullying during my elementary school years. Um, so I had to kind of be resilient and sort of think about what are the things that I can control in the situation. I
Yeah.
couldn't even control the wardrobe that my mom picked out for me at the time, little being little and all that. But I kind of plugged along, and my parents did absolutely the best for me that they could. They really did. Um, but one of the things that my father instilled in me is a strong work ethic. He did get a job right away and kind of worked for minimum wage his
Mm.
whole entire life, basically.
Wow.
Um, and so for me, I started working when back then you could, when I was 14. I started working, I got a little part time job at a library,
Okay.
stacking books and things like that. So for
Wow.
me, that was some of my first steps towards becoming financially a little bit more independent, being between like just starting to understand what are the things that I can do. I may have this adversity. I can't afford a brand new apartment for my whole family. I
Yeah.
can't, you know, I can't really change what other people's perception of me are, my thick accent. And by that point, it was starting to get a little bit better. Um, but I could at that point I could work. So nowadays I think you have to be 16 or maybe 15, I'm not sure. But I was young and I started working, and honestly, having that job, that first job, and being able to keep it for a year, just part time,
Yeah.
working 5 to 10 hours a week, at that age, I had to find my own way to get back and forth and all of that. Um, so then I got my next job, and my next job, I worked as an usher at the Hollywood Bowl during the summers, which was super exciting. Got to see a bunch of amazing concerts and incredible stars. Um, but it also taught me professionalism
Hmm.
in how to, because I got to be in the orchestra section in the first prom where
Wow.
many wealthy people were. And so being able, like, how to actually, like, professionally show them to their seat and
Hmm.
all of those skills, really. Um, and then from there, I became a bank teller during my
Okay.
senior year of high school. And that was kind of my turning point that kind of led me into finances.
You had this mindset from a very young age of resilience
Mhm.
and not letting your circumstances get you down. Where do you think that came from?
I do think that it was a survival instinct.
Hmm.
Like, I could not allow other people's negative perceptions of me, and things that I couldn't control. Like, I think it was pure survival. It was
Hmm.
so extreme. It was so extreme when we were leaving the former Soviet Union. Like, I just remember that my parents at one point, we were on a train.
Hmm.
I was super young. I'm 4 years old, so you have limited memories at that
Okay,
time.
yeah.
But I remember the train people coming by and saying, "Hey, everybody, we have to lay on the ground and turn off the lights because there's snipers shooting people
Wow.
as the trains go by, because there was some religious um, persecution also of people that were like of Jewish descent. So I just had all of those things covered. I'm like Russian, Jewish, like all the worst stuff at the
Oh
time.
man.
So I think that for me it was just like the extremity was so hard, but I did have parents that I did feel love from them.
That's great.
Which really, like, just the fact that they loved me, but they were also extremely hard on me, extremely hard on me. And I'm gonna say a phrase like, so in case anyone speaks Russian, one of the things that my parents said, "Все, мы здесь, мы только говорим по-английски. No more русский." See, I already forgot. What that means is like, hey, we're here in the United States. You can't speak any more Russian. You only speak English.
But the phrase is in Russian?
Yes, because they could speak Russian to me, but
okay.
I had to speak English to them.
Wow.
So I was quiet for a long time. No, I'm just kidding. But just that expectation that you are going to make it here.
Yeah.
And like, you need to work hard. You need to learn the language. You need to excel. And that's why they even had me bused to these schools, because some of the magnet programs were like, I was bused to Baldwin Hills, which is not like, no, at the time it was one of the poorer neighborhoods, you might say. And so they had this busing in LAUSD at the time. I used to live in California. I don't think we mentioned that. So yeah, so the resiliency was, I think, like a survival mechanism. I think also, although I did have really loving parents, I think one of the challenges was that they didn't understand anything other than hard work. That's all that they understood, was like, hey, if you have 8 hours in a day, make sure to work 7 hours, and 50 or 24 hours in a day, make sure to work 23 hours,
Wow.
So if you're expected to be there 8 hours, be there 10 hours, even if you don't get paid, like, just go work. So that was their work ethic. So when I wanted to go to college, like, I understood enough because I went to school here.
Yeah.
I understood enough that in order to progress in my career, especially at the time being interested in finance, I understood that I would need some sort of a diploma to be able to get hired at a bank for something other than a teller, like if it was ever management position or anything like that. So I wanted to go to school at USC. I got accepted. And when I shared the good news with my father, and I wasn't asking him for money at the time. I was just saying, hey, I'm going to go to school at USC. And most parents, like, I'd be so thrilled, right?
Right.
Especially
Yeah.
if the kid has a plan to pay for it for them by themselves. I'm like, cool. But my father is like, what you need, school. Nobody needs school. You need job. You need 2 jobs. You have extra time. Why school? You need extra, go work. So I'm like,
There you
okay,
go.
Poppy, I
That's pretty
love
good.
you, but I'm gonna go to college. And
Wow.
so yeah, so I did go to college. And at the time, there was no internet. There was no World Wide Web for me to figure things out. And my parents knew nothing about finances. So I didn't even know you could apply for financial aid,
Wow.
which is crazy.
Well,
So I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to go to college? I know my parents don't have money. How on earth am I going to go to college? So I applied, I got in, and I got a job as university staff because you get like 2 classes free every quarter, every
Okay.
semester.
Yeah.
And so it took me 5 years instead of 4 years to graduate. But I did it with savings rather than with debt. And
That's awesome.
yeah, and that was really huge back then. And I also lived in an apartment on campus because it was just too much to work full time at the university, take my classes, and try to drive back and forth to where my parents were living. So I had to also budget in an apartment. So to be able to afford that, I think at the time I was making $32,000 a year,
Okay.
and tuition took about, well, because I got the free tuition, it took much less. I'm sorry, I said 32. 22.
You're making 22,000. Okay.
22,000
That's an
a
important
year.
correction.
Yes.
For reference,
22.
what year was that?
1992 through 1995.
Okay.
I mean, it was more than minimum wage, for sure. But,
Okay. So
but
they
yeah,
they say that we've lost 50% of the value of the dollar since 2000. Our economist producer over there said. So it was probably around 44,000 that you
yeah,
were living
maybe,
off of. And
maybe.
you were able to afford your own apartment, your own
Yes,
tuition, most of
yes.
it, plus the free classes, plus a
Well,
car.
it was only the free classes that I took
Oh, you
there.
only took 2 classes at once.
No, I would take the other two classes at a community college
Wow.
and then
Okay.
transfer those in.
Really?
Yes, because those were pennies
Okay.
on the dollar.
Okay,
So that's
yeah.
how I was able to finish in 5 years. But I'd only take the free classes at USC and then transfer the community college classes in. So it was a
Wow.
little bit of a, back then some of the rules for transfer credit was a little bit different too. But I feel like it's something that can be duplicated right now. I do feel like right now it would actually be much easier to do this because we do have things like online classes. We have,
Yeah.
classes that you could take not during that particular time. Like I had to take classes during my lunch break or after, and there were very few evening classes. So it
Mm.
was hard to coordinate everything. But when I graduated, I had like over $10,000 saved, which was almost, I think it was close to 15,000 that was saved
Wow.
and graduate after graduating. And most people have debt of
Yeah.
60, 70,000 even back in those days, especially if you're spending 5 years at USC. So, so that was a big thing. And
Mm.
actually, I got my job at Goldman Sachs kind of
Wow.
for that reason, because I was a business major and everybody's a business major. But when they heard the story that I put myself through school and that I had savings at the end of USC, this incredible team, a private wealth management team, they were like, hey, we're going to hire you basically almost
Wow.
on the spot, which was really special. So
That's amazing.
I do feel like also I thank God for all of that. I do feel like his hand was guiding me through all of it. Like I was willing to do a lot of the hard work. Um, but but yeah, I do feel like he just completely blessed me with that and helped direct my life that way. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Did you have someone you were looking up to who was giving you advice outside of your parents, or were you really kind of on your own? Like,
Well, since especially because I didn't take a lot of the advice that my parents gave me at that
right?
point,
Yeah.
right? I'm kind of like, okay, I love them so much. If it's about, how to make really good soup or really,
Mm.
or like about work ethic to some extent, but
Yeah.
financial advice, no, I didn't. And as a matter of fact, I feel like I just kind of had to make decisions for myself because there wasn't the internet, there wasn't that kind
Yeah.
of like camaraderie, people, the mentorship, things like that didn't really exist as much. Um, but I think for me, the thing that really fueled me is wanting to be a stay-at-home mom.
Hmm. That's awesome.
When I was 15, I decided I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom
Wow.
yeah, because I saw my parents struggle so
Mm.
much, and my mom had to work and my dad worked, my mom worked, my brother is 8 years younger than I am, and it's just the two of us. Um, and my mom often commented that she feels like she wasn't there enough for Dave, for my little brother. Um, so for me, at a young age, right? So I was 15, he was 8 years old at the time.
Yeah.
Um, so seeing that dynamic, I was like, hey, I want to be there every day to pick up my kids from school. I want to drop them off. I want to do, um, but at a minimum, I want to be able to stay at home with them during like those first years.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, how much money do I need? And maybe our economist friend can do the math. How much money do I need in order to be able to stay at home for 2 to 4 years, and in my head, I said, I need $60,000. By the time I'm 25, I need $60,000 saved.
Okay.
And that way, it'll substitute. Like if I'm making 22,000 a year and after everything, I'm contributing 15,000 towards my household, then that's about 4 years that I can guarantee full time staying at
Wow.
home. And if you spread it out, and if I only work part time, then that's like 8 years
Hmm.
without even causing a dent in our budget, right? For me
Wow.
and my husband,
Yeah.
in case my husband can't afford for us to, for me to stay at home without drawing on our savings. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to save $60,000. So, and that's what I did. When I was 25, I had the
Wow.
60,000. 15 of it was while I was working at USC, and the rest came right afterwards. And I never had very high paying jobs until I actually became a financial advisor. I worked in the industry for a while at Goldman Sachs as an assistant on a team, a research analyst. That was amazing training. So, from a mentorship standpoint, absolutely just not personal mentoring to me, but just to be in that environment and learning
Yeah.
of back then too. We all sat in a bullpen, whether you're like the lowliest graduate first coming out or the highest paid financial advisor of the time, making millions of dollars. We are all just sitting across from each other. And so I got
Wow.
to absorb all of this amazing knowledge. It was really special. So,
That is so cool. You had such a clear goal from such a young
yeah,
age.
yeah.
That is a huge advantage. One of our key pillars in our program is goal setting. Well,
Yes.
really reaching goals, but
Yeah.
you can't reach a goal if you haven't set a goal, and an arrow is aimless without a target.
Mm,
And you had that target so clearly from such a young age. And I think if someone's listening to this and is going through that adversity or struggle, like
mm,
one thing you can really take away from this is have a goal.
mm.
Did it seem like it might not even seem possible? Like, okay, I'm going to save $60,000. Right now
Yeah.
I have zero.
Yeah.
How am I going to get from here to there? And it sounds like you can do it with entry level jobs, being
Mm-hmm.
conscious of your budget, spending
Mm-hmm.
less, saving. What are some of the like basic principles you stood by to
Yeah.
save up $60,000 by the time you were
Yeah.
25?
Yeah. And I don't know what that is in today's money. I'm gonna guess around 200,000. I don't know if
Get
our
a fact check over
producer,
there.
yeah,
Probably
maybe.
120,000 if we're going off the 50%
Well,
rule.
yeah, maybe something
Yeah.
like that, which is still a decent amount of money to
Yeah.
save.
It's
So
it could sound insurmountable if
yeah,
you're a 14-year-old
yeah,
kid
yeah.
who is facing homelessness and adversity,
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
mean, I think every dollar was so precious to me because I'm
Hmm.
like, am I going to work for you or are you going to work for me?
Hmm.
And so when I give that dollar away, it's like, is that worth it? Is that worth having
Hmm.
to make $2 later to spend that
Hmm.
$1? Or is it better to have that dollar working by saving it, by putting it into a CD, something safe, letting it
Hmm.
grow with a little bit of interest. Over time, at first I just did savings accounts, but then over time I learned about investing and things like that. So for me, my dollars had so much purpose. They had
Hmm.
like an assignment, like you are going to make me stay at home. So when I have the right, like so I could
You
stay
talk
home
to
with
them
my
like,
friends,
yeah,
with my children. So
yeah.
when I would go out with my friends, even as a young person, um, like we would go to dance clubs and things like that.
Okay.
And everybody has to pay a cover. But once you pay the cover, you don't have to buy a drink. You don't have to buy food. You
True.
could just enjoy and bring the party
Yeah.
naturally. So I was always the one that's like, oh, I'll have water, which I'm sorry, all the club owners, I'm sorry, all the restaurant owners, I apologize. And nowadays, because we're in a place of financial freedom, nowadays I feel like, yeah, we do enjoy some restaurants. We do enjoy like a cruise now and then or something like that. Um, But back then, it just wasn't my season to do that.
Hmm.
I felt like what I wanted more was financial freedom. I wanted that more. So it was like
Yeah.
short-term pain for long-term gain. And I wouldn't even say having water is pain,
Yeah.
but it is hard. It is hard. Like you have to have that discipline where all your friends are buying the newest shoes or the newest outfits and things like that. And I just had to be disciplined with my vision and that this is going to take me away from what my goals are. Yeah, so I spent very little. I was always known as the one that would, like, we would go out to eat, and every single time my roommates and I went out to eat, we'd go once a week as a household, like six of us would go out, which was great bonding time. But the purpose was what? Was the purpose for me was the fellowship. It was the like we're here to chat, to talk. And so my roommates would make fun of me, but every time I would order whatever was the cheapest on the
Well, you were
menu.
used to the bullying. You'd been
Yes,
there.
you're
You'd
right.
heard worse.
You're
You're like,
right.
you're gonna make fun of me for not spending my money. I'll take that.
Exactly. At least you're not threatening to beat me up for being Russian, like
Yeah.
that was a real thing back then, or
Yeah.
Ukrainian, I guess you might say it now. But yeah, so I would always order whatever was cheapest. If it was a
Hmm.
baked potato for 99 cents, that's what I was eating. Everyone
Okay.
else is eating like the $10 meals and I'm eating the $1 meal. But those $9, they're gonna
Yeah.
be saved. And so it was actually really cool because my husband was able to leave his work. Like, not only did I get to stay home
Mm.
with my kids, which was awesome, and work. I wouldn't say stay home because my kids did go to public school. So I would work when they were at school and then
Hmm.
I'd pick them up from school and make them their little snacks and, just had the time of my life when my kids were little. Um, but then also, my husband got to leave his job and kind of
Wow.
pursue other interests when he was 39 years old, which
Wow.
was awesome. So, and my husband, he had an average job. I had, I wasn't making millions of dollars. So, a lot of it is just spending a lot less than what you bring home and really figuring out what you need. So,
Okay. It sounds like a great principle. I've heard so many people say like, "Oh, you need a budget and you need to stick to it."
mm,
But I've felt with that, if I have a budget of, let's say it's $100 for eating
mm-hmm,
out in a month, and I have only spent 70, then
mm-hmm,
I'm like, oh, I have $30 left in my budget. Or let's say I go over and it's like, well, I really needed like a new tire for my car. Like I
yeah.
couldn't have avoided that. Like, did you have a budget or was it mostly principles?
That's a great question. So, actually, I did not have a budget at all when I was
Hmm.
single
Okay. Interesting.
because, yeah, I just would save like everything. Like it was the
Mm.
bare minimum. So, when I had the opportunity, so I told you there were six of us living
Okay.
in a house. I always was like, I'll take the smallest room with the three roommates, Like some of the women were like, oh no, I need my own room.
Hmm.
I need my own bathroom. And so we would split the rent
Okay.
kind of based on the rooms. And so
Hmm.
some of the girls were, oh yeah, we can't afford too much, so we'll take the smallest room. I could afford it. Um, but I just, why, if it's available, I'm happy to share a space because my future freedom. And right now too, when you're young, you have the energy and you don't need all the comfort. Like now in my mid 50s, I kind of need the comfort. I kind of need my own room to be able to sleep and all that. But back then, you just knock out whether you have roommates or not. And so living way below, choosing the cheapest options, for me, that really worked. And it was a lifestyle. But when I got married, my husband and I actually had to budget.
Hmm.
And we budgeted to force ourselves to spend money, not the
Really?
other way around.
Hmm.
Because again, assigning a task to every dollar, it's like, okay, we do want to reach out to people. We want to have
Hmm.
dinner with people. We want to go out and some of my best friends were established because we kind of forced ourselves to, okay, let's go out to dinner with people. Let's let's take a trip with someone, because our
The
nat
season changed.
yeah, yeah.
It was
So
a new
so we
season.
forced ourselves like, okay, let's spend money on this, or but to this day my husband's really good with like the subscriptions, and my husband also, he was homeless for about a year
Hmm.
growing up. And then his grandparents got custody of him, so that was really good. So he was used to living a little bit like without having too much. So we had that to our advantage, that we
Wow.
were kind of used to that. And um,
That's so interesting. Like to call that an advantage. Like, you know,
mm,
from the outside as someone who didn't experience that kind of adversity, I am so grateful.
mm,
But it's a different life. Like you do have that perspective of I can get through anything. You
mm,
both do, and that you don't need luxuries or a lot or
mm,
that's amazing that you call it an advantage. I it's so inspiring because you could easily think I'm a victim
mm,
or the circumstances were set up for other people, not me, and I'm going to just continue living my life the way I've seen. But if
mm,
both of you were able to have that strength and that perspective and those goals and assign every dollar a task. That is a
mm.
really interesting way to put it. What are those basic essentials? I mean, you have to pay rent, you have to have transportation,
Mm-hmm.
food.
Yeah, and
What
even
else?
like absolutely. I mean, food, I was always like, "Hey, what's on the weekly ad? That's what I'm eating this week." Right?
Nice.
Like that's it. So, I kind of created my own recipes based on what was on sale. I'm
That's
not
cool.
one to ever be like, "Ooh, I need this type of condiment or this type of ingredient," and go out and pay full price. I just kind of create that way. But now, of
Wow.
course, I've changed, or I'll buy things ahead of time so that it's my pantry is stocked. But at that time, I was like, hey, I could make this work, chicken's on sale this week, and grapes, and a little bread, and whatever. Um, so I think even though food is an essential, I think there's also a way to really save money on the food. Um, I think as far as transportation goes, one of the things that I did was I took the commuter express,
Hmm.
when I was working in downtown LA for incredible firms that are just amazing. I mean, at the time we weren't really talking about the environment. Now I'm like, yes, I did this for the environment.
Nice.
But but I helped. I helped a little bit. I did a little bit of my part. Potentially, I don't know how much those buses put out in fumes compared to my car, but it was so much cheaper than
Hmm.
like the parking in downtown LA was so expensive, the
Yeah.
gasoline, and so at that time I was like, hey. I'm going to take this commuter express and I'm going to walk 3 to 4 blocks to get to my job, which, by God's grace, honestly, looking back on it, I don't know that I would want my daughter at that young age, being 25 years old, 24, walking, in downtown Los Angeles, but it's okay. I did it, and it was great. It saved a lot of money. It provided me a lot of time to read, to do other things on the bus. So I just have always looked for, like, I never felt like, oh, this is below me or something like that. So, um, and yeah, so I'm
That's awesome.
definitely one of those that will walk 3 to 4 blocks with my husband. I go to the Hollywood Bowl, where those crazy people that park 7 blocks away and walk to the Hollywood Bowl together.
That's good exercise.
It is good
You know.
exercise because you're sitting at a concert and eating good food,
Yeah.
so why not?
Yeah. No, I've noticed sometimes you can do the same exact situation as someone else
Mhm.
and have such a completely different perspective on it and
Mm,
get such a completely different outcome. Like for someone
mm,
parking 7 blocks away from the Hollywood Bowl, there's probably a good half of people who would be like, this is horrible. I hate this. This
mm,
is so far. But you could also have the perspective of, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save money
yeah,
and we're going to get good exercise. And maybe
yeah,
we'll have a prayer walk on the way.
yeah.
you can look at any situation like that. And with your situation where you came from bullying and immigrating and a variety of other difficulties, someone could look at that and say, like, oh, my life was terrible and I'm, a victim or whatever the case may be. And
Mm-hmm.
you looked at that situation. Some people could look at that and say, no, I have the advantage because I've overcome adversity. I know what that looks like. And now I can face the rest of life's challenges from that perspective
Mm-hmm.
and with that strength and experience. So it that's important to keep in mind whenever we face any situation that's slightly difficult. What perspective do you have on it? And there's so many studies and research on there's so much study and research on perspective and how it shapes resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And people who go through like um, the concentration camps in the war, there's been people who've survived who have come out stronger because of it, and some who have come out with PTSD or different
Yeah.
ailments. And one of the biggest factors in the difference is their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Did they believe in God and a higher power and that they were here for a reason and that kept them going?
Mm-hmm.
Or did they take the opposite mindset? And so with our families, we hope to encourage them. We hope to encourage everybody in our programs to take that perspective of not necessarily positivity, but in eventual positivity, that whatever you're going through, it's for a reason and you can get through it and overcome those odds. And people have overcome those odds and we're seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for being on our show, for sharing your story.
Mm-hmm.
It's relatable to so many in our programs, and I hope they all watch this and all our volunteers and everybody. And we really appreciate you being on. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh my goodness. No, I mean, there's always more things to talk about. Maybe we'll come on again.
Yeah.
It's been a privilege to be able to share with you and to start to talk about some of these things. I hope you get to talk to my husband one day because he
Oh,
also, yeah, I'm very fortunate to have him in my life. He's pretty amazing. His story is much more challenging than mine was,
wow.
um, and he's pretty incredible. So,
Aw, that's so
yeah,
sweet.
yeah, yeah,
We'll have to get Phil on one day. So,
yes.
Phil, if you're in the area, come stop by. Well, we appreciate you, Rita. Thank you
Thank
for being
you.
on our show, Root Cause, where we get to the root cause of homelessness and other issues.
Mhm.
And we are thankful for all you watching at home and anywhere you are. And this has been Allie Mayernick, Director of For the Need, and Rita, financial planner and advisor and an expert in finances who has overcome her circumstances. So thank you for
Mhm.
watching and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.